Even Practice Management is thrilled to host a practice management bootcamp that will concentrate on the fundamentals of the things needed for successful practice. The objective of this 3-day bootcamp is to give you the skills and the abilities to earn more while working less, and also work on improving your lifestyle. So before I go into what we are going to be talking about in this 3-day bootcamp, let me tell you what we're not going to discuss. We're not going to talk about taxes. We're not going to talk about standards and auditing and all of that. We're not going to talk about bookkeeping software or anything related to accounting, because all of those things are really to help you provide a better service to your clients. But what about you? Where are we spending time for you as an individual and as a business owner? So what we are going to talk about is ways to improve your practice. Now you're probably wondering, well, how are we going to do that? Can we in 3 days work on improving your practice? Well, one of the things that we're going to do in those 3-day bootcamp is we're going to actually dissect your practice. We're going to kind of tear it apart and put it back together in a much better state. So the things that we're going to discuss about in this 3-day very intense boot camp are things like marketing. So marketing is the ability to increase the number of clients you have, as well as retain the clients you currently have. We're also going to be talking about value billing. So we're going to talk about how to determine what you're worth and how do you bill that. Because a question I get often is, how do I know what to bill for different services? So we're going to go very much in depth on how to determine what you should be charging for the different services that you render. We're also going to be going into a fair amount of details on how to better track your time. Now you may say, well, that doesn't seem all that pertinent, but believe me, it is unbelievable what the proper time and billing software can do to your practice. What you can learn in using a better software and using it properly can have an impact that you cannot believe on your bottom line. The other thing we're going to talk about is time management. Because let's face it, if we don't want to work all the time, we only have about 2,000 or so hours every year for our practice. So in order for us to have a successful practice, it is critical that we have a good time management system. And so what we're going to talk about is how to make better use of every minute of every day while you're at work. Another important component to the success of a practice is the skill of hiring and motivating your team. So hiring the right team is critical to the success of your firm. If you're like a lot of practitioners, hiring the right person is extremely difficult. And we find ourselves continuously hiring and firing the people that we hired. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in depth into, first of all, identifying the right candidate, and then number 2, how to bring them in. But identifying it means you got to ask the right questions and know what to look for when you're asking those questions. And then once you've hired the right candidate, how do you motivate them? How do you get them excited about your practice? How do you get them to think like an owner? How do you get them to care about the firm, about each other, and about your clients? We're also going to talk about practice profitability. In other words, this component relates to what reports you should be preparing, how often, how to read them properly. So having the right data in front of you about what you're doing can be instrumental and have a tremendous impact on the success of your firm. Because finally, there is gold in their reports. And that's what we're going to try to discover. Another important aspect of being successful in practice is the whole psychology. Because most of us, I think, need help in keeping that lizard brain of ours in check. Because mind loves drama. So how do you then control that brain of yours when it wants to go squirrely? So we're going to have a person who works in psychology talk about stress and anxiety And something that I've learned through this person is how anxiety actually plays a useful role in our life. So wouldn't it be nice to know what anxiety is trying to tell us, and then from there, use it to our advantage rather than as something that cripples us in our practice. And then finally, we are also going to talk about buying and selling a practice. We're going to show you what's important when you're looking for a practice, and also how to increase its value should you be interested in selling it in the next few years. So if you're like me, you're probably always asking yourself before you go to any kind of presentation or boot camp, am I going to get my money's worth? So in other words, can this thing somehow pay for itself? Well, consider this. If during those 3 days you can learn a few things that will allow you to get, say, 2 moderate-sized clients, that in itself will pay for the boot camp. Now, what if you don't pick up any new clients, but we're able to show you how to increase your revenues by only 2%? So assuming you're making $150,000 a year, if we can increase your revenues by only 2% without touching any of your expenses, that will generate an extra $3,000 of profit. Now, my personal opinion is that you will probably learn how to increase your revenues by close to 10%. So if you're making $250,000, and we can increase your gross revenues by 10% without touching your expenses, we are going to be increasing your bottom line by $25,000. So even if I achieve only a small portion of that, you are absolutely getting your money's worth. Now let's just imagine that I don't succeed in increasing your bottom line at all. If you can learn how to manage your time better to allow you to have more time at home with your family and just enjoy being in practice a little bit more because you've kept your anxiety a little bit more in check, wouldn't that be worth the cost of the boot camp? I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that this boot camp will pay for itself within the first year, and in fact, in a lot less time. I'd be really surprised if it did not pay for itself within the first 3 months, insofar as you implement a lot of the things that you will have learned during those 3 very intensive 3-day boot camp. Now, if you come to the boot camp and you don't agree that you got your money's worth, this thing comes with a money-back guarantee. In other words, we will gladly give you your money back if you don't feel that you got your money's worth. So this 3-day boot camp will be a terrific opportunity for you to not only learn and ask questions with people like myself, but also with other practitioners who will be there in the room with you. So this event is happening in person in Winnipeg, but for those of you who are not willing to travel to Winnipeg, you will be able to join us virtually, and you too will be able to ask questions and discuss with other participants. So one of the things that we're going to be absolutely demanding is that you have your camera on so that we can interact better with everyone in our audience, whether you be here in person or virtually. I must say, I really look forward to seeing you either in person or virtually, because practice management is something that I really love discussing, and I love to hear people's thoughts and helping them achieve heights they've never achieved before. So please join us, and let's make this thing fun and interactive and a great learning opportunity to bring your practice to heights you never seen possible.